The classroom buzzed with soft sounds. Alien students of all colors and shapes filled the seats. Some had smooth green skin. Others had fur or sharp spikes along their backs. A few had floating orbs instead of heads. They all sat quietly, waiting for their history class to begin. The large screen on the front wall blinked on. A tall, blue-skinned teacher with glowing eyes stepped forward. His name was Instructor Kelvon, known for teaching the truths of the Galactic Union. Today's lesson, Kelvon said, is about the old ban, the ban placed on a now forbidden species, the species known as humans. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then, laughter broke out. Several students began snickering. One student, with red feathers, leaned back in his chair and said, "Humans? They were banned. For what, smelling bad?" More laughter. A yellow-skinned creature with 4 arms joined in. "Maybe they were too slow. I heard they used to throw rocks and yell when they got scared." Even Kelvon smiled faintly, but then raised his hand for silence. "Enough," he said calmly. "The Galactic Union does not joke about its bans. But yes, many believe the ban on humans is strange. There are no known wars caused by them. No technology we use today comes from them. Most believe they were weak and backward. Yet still, they were banned from all Union systems over 800 years ago. No contact allowed, no visits, no trade. Complete silence." A student in the back raised his hand. He was quiet, with smooth gray skin and large purple eyes. His name was Varnak. "Instructor," Varnak asked, "if humans were so weak, why ban them? What threat did they pose?" The class chuckled again, but Kelvon didn't laugh this time. "That is a question many have asked," he replied. "But the Council has sealed all detailed records. We only know the ban was enforced after a single event. One event that took place on a small moon near the edge of the Orion border." Another student leaned forward. "What event?" Kelvin's eyes glowed brighter. "That is where the records end. All footage, all reports, even names. Gone. Some say the files were deleted. Others say they are locked away in the deep archive." "Sounds like a cover-up," someone whispered. Varnak frowned. The word stayed in his mind like a splinter. If humans were really nothing, then why hide everything? After class, the students filed out, still laughing and joking about the legend of dangerous humans. But Varnak stayed behind. He stood, quietly in front of the screen, reading the final words on the lesson slide. Homo sapiens. Terran origin. Banned. That night, while others rested, Varnak sat in his dorm room. He couldn't stop thinking. The Galactic Union had records for every war, every enemy, every threat, but not for humans? It didn't make sense. He opened his personal tablet and linked to the campus archive. Most of it was public, but with his scholar access, he could see more. He typed human ban footage. No results. He tried Terran moon incident. Nothing. He sighed, then tried something different. Restricted files. Old archive. A single result blinked onto his screen. A file titled, Classified, Terran Combat Encounter, Level 7 Clearance. His heart thumped. He shouldn't even be able to see that title. He clicked on it. A warning flashed. Restricted file. Viewing will alert Galactic security. Proceed? He stared at the screen for a long moment. His finger hovered over the option. Then he tapped, Yes. The screen went black for 2 seconds. Then, grainy footage appeared. A shaky camera floated behind a group of alien soldiers, walking through dark corridors on what looked like a mining station. The walls were scratched and burned. Lights flickered. The lead soldier, a tall insectoid, spoke into his comm. Scouts confirmed 6 humans trapped inside. Orders are to take them alive. Another soldier laughed. Alive? They're just primitives. This will be easy. Suddenly the lights went out. The camera shook wildly. Movement! Behind us! A sharp sound cracked through the air. One alien screamed. Another shouted, They're using projectile weapons! The footage turned chaotic. Muzzle flashes lit the darkness. Fast-moving shapes darted through the shadows. One human rolled out from cover and fired. 2 aliens dropped. Varnak's eyes widened. The humans weren't using high-tech weapons, but their aim was perfect. Their movement was fast. They fought like they'd done this 1,000 times before. One soldier panicked and ran. A human chased him silently and tackled him to the floor. Screams echoed. Then silence. The camera showed. The last alien, bleeding and cornered, whispering, "Please don't." A tall human in dark armor stepped into view. His face was calm, cold. The human leaned down and said, "You shouldn't have come here." The screen went black. Varnak sat frozen. His hands trembled. He had never seen anyone fight like that. Not even elite Union troopers moved like those humans. They didn't just win, they dominated. His screen blinked red. Unauthorized access detected. Galactic security has been alerted. He shut it down instantly. The room was silent. Too silent. He looked outside his window. In the far sky, the moons of Zareth hung quiet and peaceful. But inside him, something had shifted. He had to know more. The next day, he kept quiet in class. No jokes, no laughter. The other students teased him for being silent. But Varnak didn't care. He needed answers. He approached Instructor Kelvon after class. "I saw something," Varnak said softly. "Footage. From the Terran moon. It was real." Kelvon's eyes flickered. "You accessed a restricted file?" the teacher said, voice lower now. Varnak nodded. "Why is it hidden?" "What are they afraid of?" Kelvon didn't answer. He simply said, "You've seen too much already. Walk away, Varnak, for your own safety." Then he turned and left. Varnak stood there, stunned. Walk away? That wasn't a warning. It was a threat. Later that night, a message pinged on his tablet. "If you want the truth, meet me at the old archive, midnight. Come alone." He stared at the message. Someone knew what he saw. Someone else knew the truth. The old archive was deep under the school, abandoned, sealed, forgotten. No one went there. Anymore, he didn't think, he just went. The halls were dark, his steps echoed. The air grew colder as he went deeper. He found the door. It slid open with a long hiss. Inside stood an old alien with white eyes and wrinkled skin. He leaned on a cane. His voice was low. "I'm Professor Trinor," he said. "I taught before. The records were erased, before the council banned even the truth." Varnak stared at him. "What happened with the humans?" Trinor's eyes burned with memory. "They were the only species the Union ever feared," he said. "Because when humans are pushed, they don't break. They fight, and they win." Varnak whispered, "I saw them. They were terrifying." Trinor nodded slowly. "That was just a taste. You haven't seen what they truly are." He reached into a hidden drawer and pulled out another data chip. "This is what they erased," he said. "But you need to be ready. Once you see it, there's no going back." Varnak took the chip with shaking hands. "Why are you helping me?" Trinor looked into his eyes. "Because the galaxy needs to remember, before it's too late." Far above them, on the peaceful surface, laughter still echoed in classrooms. But deep below, Varnak now held the truth that could shatter that laughter forever. And someone out there already knew he had seen too much. The old room was cold, filled with dust and forgotten air. Varnak held the chip tightly in his hand, staring at it like it might explode. Professor Trinor stood silently, watching him, as if measuring his strength. Varnak had never seen a file like the one last night. It felt like a door had opened, and behind it was a world no one wanted to talk about. The first video had changed something inside him. Now this new chip might change everything. Trinor's voice was calm but serious. "This file is older than the one you saw. Very few have ever watched it. The council buried it deep. They don't want anyone to remember." Varnak nodded slowly. "Why did they hide it?" "Because it showed something no one wanted to believe," Trinor replied. "That the humans were not weak. They were something else, something dangerous in a different way. Not because they wanted control, but because they never gave up. Varnak inserted the chip into his tablet. The screen lit up. There was no warning this time, just a single date, so old it looked like it came from before the Galactic Union even existed. The video started with a quiet view of a small colony. It looked peaceful. Simple buildings, no weapons, no guards. Alien children played in the dirt while adults worked on machines. In the distance, dark clouds began to form. A voice spoke through the recording. Calm, clear, human. This is Outpost 17. We are a peaceful research colony. We have no weapons. If anyone hears this message, we ask for help. Please. The video shook as noise filled the sky. Ships appeared. Not Union ships. Raiders. They dropped from the clouds like shadows. Doors opened. Figures came out, heavily armored, carrying advanced gear. The colonists panicked. Some tried to run. Some shielded the children. Varnak's fingers gripped the sides of the tablet. He expected a battle. But the humans didn't fight. They didn't even try. They stood still. Silent. They were completely outmatched. One human, an old man, stepped forward. He raised his hands and said something too quiet to hear. One of the raiders moved closer and shouted. The old man didn't move. He just looked straight at the attacker. The raider raised his weapon. The screen turned white for a second, then returned. The next moments moved slowly. The raiders began pushing the humans, yelling, taking supplies. A few colonists were hurt, but still, no one fought back. Then a young human girl stepped forward. She couldn't have been more than 10. She walked toward a fallen colonist and tried to help. A raider grabbed her arm and shoved her to the ground. There was silence in the video. Then one human broke from the group. He moved fast, not to attack, but to shield the girl. The raider shouted again. Another human joined, then another. One by one, they stood in front of the child. No weapons, just bodies. The screen flickered again. The next part of the video had no sound, but it didn't need sound. The humans didn't fight like soldiers. They didn't strike back. They just refused to move, refused to run. They stayed together, helping each other up, refusing to show fear. The raiders, confused and frustrated, started leaving. One of them looked back, and for a second the camera caught his face. He wasn't angry. He looked shaken. Varnak stared at the screen, unsure how to feel. There had been no battle, no victory. Yet something had happened, something powerful. The humans had no strength and weapons, but they showed something else. Something hard to explain. Why didn't they fight? Varnak asked. They did, Triner said quietly. In their own way. And it worked. That event was sent across many systems. Those raiders never returned. They were known for never losing, but that day they didn't win. But that's not dangerous, Varnak said. That's just bravery. Triner nodded. Yes, but bravery spreads. That's what the Union feared. Humans didn't fight for power. They fought for each other. They protected the weak, even when they were weak themselves. That kind of courage, it makes others question. It makes them believe. And belief, my boy, is hard to control. Varnak sat in silence. He had seen 2 videos. In one, humans moved like shadows and defended themselves with unmatched skill. In the other, they stood still, and somehow still won. The messages were different, but both carried something the Union had hidden. The truth. A soft beeping sound broke the silence. Triner looked down. His eyes narrowed. They found us, he whispered. Varnak's chest tightened. What do you mean? I warned you, Triner said calmly. Once you see the truth, you can't turn back. They'll try to erase it again, just like they erased the others. What do we do? Varnak asked. Triner pressed a button under the desk. A secret compartment opened, revealing a small, old-looking device. You take this, he said. It's a copy. hidden inside a memory frame. No one will know what it is unless they truly look. You must protect it, and when the time is right, show it to the galaxy. Varnak took the device with both hands. He could feel the weight of it, not just the metal, but the history it carried. The stories, the warnings, the proof. Trinor walked toward the far wall and pressed another hidden switch. A panel opened, showing a tunnel. "Go," he said. "Follow the path. It'll take you out to the edge of campus. You must move now." "But what about you?" Varnak asked. Trinor smiled. "My part is done. I've kept the truth alive. Now it's your turn." Varnak hesitated for only a second, then ran. The tunnel was dark and narrow, but he kept going. Behind him he could hear distant voices, doors opening, footsteps. He reached the end and stepped into the night. The air was cool. The stars above shone bright and quiet, as if unaware of the secrets unfolding below. He didn't know what would happen next, but one thing was clear. The truth about humans was never simple. It wasn't just about strength or war. It was about something deeper, something powerful, something that couldn't stay hidden forever. And Varnak had just become the one carrying it. The wind whispered across the quiet hills as Varnak moved deeper into the forest. The narrow tunnel behind him had sealed itself, leaving no sign of the path he took. He could still hear the professor's final words echoing in his head. The truth had been passed to him like a flame, and now it was his burden to carry it forward. In his hand was the memory frame, a small silver device no larger than his palm. It didn't look like much, but inside it was a story powerful enough to make governments nervous, powerful enough to scare those who thought they ruled the stars. Varnak knew he couldn't go back to the academy. The council would be watching, every door, scanning every signal. He needed help, but who could he trust? As he walked through the quiet woods, his thoughts turned to Sira. She had been one of the few who never laughed when he spoke of humans. She listened more than she talked, asked questions no one else dared to ask. If anyone could understand, it was her. The next town was 3 sectors away. Varnak knew he had to avoid main routes and communication hubs. It would take time, but he would reach her. He wrapped the memory frame inside a cloth and hid it deep in his bag. Night fell slowly, wrapping the forest in silver light. Strange creatures made soft sounds in the distance, and small lights blinked in the trees. But Varnak kept walking. He couldn't afford to stop. By morning, he reached the edge of the town. It was small, a quiet settlement built between low hills and green lakes. He moved carefully through the back roads until he reached a familiar door. It was made of old wood and soft metal, and he tapped it 3 times. The door opened slightly. A single eye looked out. "Varnak?" Sira whispered. He nodded quickly. "Can I come in?" Without a word, she pulled him inside and closed the door. Her home was filled with old books, maps, and strange tools. It smelled like tea and ink. "What happened?" she asked, guiding him to a seat. "They know," he said. "The council. They know I saw the videos. Professor Trinor gave me something else, something they tried to erase." Sira looked at him with quiet concern. "Are you sure it's safe to be here?" "No," Varnak admitted, "but I had nowhere else to go." He took out the memory frame and placed it on the table. Sira's eyes widened. "Is that?" He nodded. "A copy of something the galaxy was never meant to see." They sat together in silence for a long moment. Then Sira picked up the device and connected it to her screen. A soft hum filled the room, and the display lit up. More footage. This time it showed a courtroom. Not like those in the Union, but something simpler. Human voices filled the air. There was tension, sadness, and strength in their words. A woman stood at the front, facing a panel. Her hands were folded, her voice steady. Behind her sat rows of others, humans, silent, watching. "I was ordered to leave them," the woman said. "But I stayed, because I couldn't turn away from those who needed help, even if they weren't my people, even if it cost me everything." The panel questioned her, trying to understand why she had done it. She didn't speak of victory or pride. She spoke of duty, of compassion, of standing when others walked away, as The footage ended. Sierra leaned back in her chair. They were different, she said quietly. Everyone said they were wild, unpredictable. But this is something else. They called them dangerous, Varnak said. But maybe it's because they were too brave, too free. They looked at each other, the weight of realization heavy in the air. The truth wasn't just about what humans could do. It was about what they believed, about how they acted when no one was watching, how they helped others even when they had nothing to gain. Suddenly, a soft light blinked on the wall panel. Sierra froze. They're scanning, she said. Short-range signal. It's them. Varnak's heart raced. They followed me. Sierra stood quickly. We have to hide the device. She pulled open a floor panel and dropped the frame inside, sealing it shut with a layer of tools and papers. Then she turned to Varnak. You'll need a new identity. They'll be checking every transport, every face. Varnak nodded. Where do I go? There's a place on the outer rim, she said. A mining planet. Hard life, but quiet. The council won't look there. I can't stay hidden forever, he said. You won't, she replied. Just long enough to learn more. And then, we share the truth. Not just the videos, but the message behind them. Varnak looked around the small room. It was quiet. Again, but something had changed. He wasn't just a student anymore. He was a carrier of forgotten truths. And even though he felt afraid, he also felt stronger. They waited until nightfall. Sierra gave him old clothes, a forged pass, and enough credits to reach the port. As he stepped out into the night again, Varnak looked back at the small house. He didn't know if he would see Sierra again. But he knew what he had to do. The stars, above, shimmered like silent watchers. Somewhere out there, more stories waited. Hidden truths, buried memories. The kind of stories that could change everything. And Varnak was going to find them. The sky above the spaceport was filled with slow-moving ships and blinking lights. Each one was scanned before landing, checked for names, cargo, and faces. Varnak stood in line, his hood pulled low, his hands tucked into his coat. His heart beat faster with every step forward. He knew the council was watching every gate, every terminal. But he also knew he had to get off this world. The forged identity chip Sierra gave him was old, but clean. It named him as a survey technician heading to a mining colony on Darsa 5, a quiet planet on the edge of Union space. Most people went there to disappear. No one asked questions. That made it the perfect place to hide and to plan. When his turn came, he held out the chip and looked down, avoiding eye contact with the officer. Name? The officer asked without much interest. Rilvan Thas, Varnak answered, using the name on the chip. The officer scanned the card and looked at his screen for a moment too long. Varnak's stomach turned. But then the scanner beeped once and the officer waved him through. You're in Bay 6, he said. Transport leaves in 20 minutes. Varnak nodded and moved quickly. He didn't look back. The ship was small, mostly used for supply runs and passenger transport. Inside, the seats were basic, the lights dim. A few workers sat silently, their faces tired, their clothes stained with dust and grease. No one noticed him. That was good. He took a seat near the back and stared out the window as the engines hummed to life. Slowly, the ship lifted into the sky. The planet below grew smaller, the lights turning to pinpricks, the noise fading away. As they entered space, Varnak finally let out a long breath. He wasn't safe, but he was farther than before. That mattered. The journey to Darsa 5 took 6 hours. He didn't sleep. He thought about the memory frame, hidden in Sierra's house, waiting. He thought about the humans in the footage, strong in silence, brave without weapons. And he thought about the council. How far would they go to hide the truth? Darsa 5 came into view slowly. A brown and gray world, covered in canyons and dust storms. The colony was built inside a long crater to protect it from the wind. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. The ship landed with a soft bump. Workers filed out quietly. Varnak followed, keeping his head low. The air smelled like metal and heat. Machines roared in the distance. This was a place of hard work, long hours and short words. He checked in using his fake name and was assigned a small room in the lower levels of the habitat. It was barely bigger than a closet, with a narrow bed and a broken light, but it was his for now. The next few days passed slowly. He worked in the survey room, checking old mining maps and equipment logs. It was quiet, and no one bothered him. That gave him time to think. Late at night, he would sit on his bunk and study the tiny map Sierra had drawn him before he left. It showed old communication lines, back channels used before the Union's network was built. Some of them still worked. They were slow and hidden, perfect for sending messages without being tracked. On the 7th night, Varnak decided to try. He connected a small transmitter to the wall panel and tapped in a simple code. A soft beep confirmed it was working. He kept his message short. "I'm safe. Need more footage. If we want to share this, we need more. Send what you can." Then. He waited. 3 days passed. Nothing came. Then, just after the mining shift ended, a signal blinked on his panel. A reply. "I've found something. Not a video, but a file. An old report. It talks about the humans before they joined the Union. A mission. A rescue. I'll send it piece by piece." That night, the first part of the file arrived. Varnak read it slowly, carefully. It spoke of a lost expedition on a cold planet. A Union team had vanished in a storm. All contact was lost. The Council wanted to write them off. But the humans, who were not even members of the Union yet, offered to help. They landed in the middle of the storm, against orders, against warnings. No reward, just because someone needed help. They found the lost team 6 days later, cold, hungry, but alive. The humans had stayed with them, building shelters, hunting for food, sharing their own supplies. They had saved every single one of them, and when the Union officials came to collect the survivors, the humans simply left. No speeches, no credit, no demands. Varnak sat back in his chair, stunned. Again, no violence, no fight, just courage, sacrifice, quiet strength. Why had no one spoken of this? He knew the answer. Because it didn't fit the picture the Council painted. They had called humans reckless, unstable, too emotional. But the truth was the opposite. The truth showed something strong and steady, something that made others look small in comparison, and now Varnak held that truth in his hands. More messages came in the following days, more reports, more hidden files. Small pieces, but each one told the same story. Humans stepping in where others turned away, taking risks not for gain, but for others. Slowly, a plan began to form in Varnak's mind. What if these stories were shared, not through official channels, but through the people? Quietly, one system at a time. Old satellites, hidden networks, personal screens, a slow stream of truth that couldn't be stopped once it started. But first, he needed the original memory frame, the one he left with Sierra, and to get it, he'd have to return. The hum of the mining colony faded behind Varnak as he prepared to leave Darsa 5. His time there had been quiet, almost too quiet, but it had given him what he needed, a clearer view of the humans beyond the stories the Council wanted everyone to believe. Each report he received revealed a new layer of their character, kindness, bravery, and a willingness to help others even when the risks were high. Yet the biggest challenge waited for him back at Sierra's home. The memory frame, the one piece that held undeniable proof, was still hidden under the floorboards. Retrieving it meant risking everything. If the Council's agents found him, there would be no second chance. But Varnak's resolve was firm. This was no longer just about escaping danger. It was about carrying a message that could change the galaxy's view of humanity forever. His ship landed quietly at the Outer Rim station, a place where travelers came and went like shadows. He pulled his hood low and slipped through the crowd, keeping to narrow alleys and side passages. Every step brought a fresh wave of tension. the feeling that eyes watched from every dark corner, that voices whispered behind closed doors. When he finally reached Sierra's house, the door was cracked open, a sign he didn't like. Moving inside cautiously, he called out softly, "Sierra?" There was no answer. The room was still. Papers scattered on the floor, a chair knocked over. It looked as if someone had left in a hurry, or worse, had been forced out. Varnak's pulse quickened. He knelt by the floor panel, fingers trembling as he tried to open it. The tools and papers that once hid the memory frame were gone. Whoever had come here knew exactly what they were looking for. A cold wave of fear passed through him, but he forced it down. The message still needed to be shared. As he searched the room for any clue, his comlink buzzed quietly. A coded message flickered on the screen. "They are coming. You are not alone. Trust the whispers in the shadows." The message was brief and cryptic, but it meant one thing. Help was out there, hidden but real. Varnak left the house, stepping back into the night. The streets felt different now, like a web closing in. He kept moving, guided by the mysterious message. Somewhere in the city, in the forgotten tunnels beneath the surface, people who believed in the truth waited. The tunnels were dark and winding, the air thick with dust and old secrets. Varnak's steps echoed softly as he followed faded markings on the walls, signs left by those who had once resisted the council's control. At the end of the path, a small group gathered, faces lit by the glow of handheld devices. "We heard about you," a woman said. Her voice was calm but strong. "And about the memory frame." Varnak nodded, holding out his hands. "I need help. The council is hunting me." They took the proof from Sierra's place. One of the group, an older man with sharp eyes, stepped forward. "We have contacts across many systems. We can protect you, but more than that, we can broadcast the truth." "How?" Varnak asked. The woman smiled faintly. "Old satellites, hidden networks, personal channels. We've been building a secret web. One message at a time, the truth can spread." Varnak's hope grew. This was the chance they needed. But first they had to find the memory frame. Days passed in a blur of plans and cautious moves. The group shared information, gathering clues from hidden sources and intercepted messages. Slowly, a pattern emerged. The memory frame had been taken to a secure facility, a forgotten data center deep beneath the city, guarded by systems designed to block all intruders. Varnak's heart sank. Breaking into such a place would be nearly impossible, but there was no choice. The night before the mission, Varnak stood outside the tunnel entrance, staring up at the stars. He thought about the humans he'd seen on the footage. Not warriors with weapons, but heroes through their courage and compassion. If they could face impossible odds for others, so could he. The next day, the group moved quickly. Using forgotten passages and hacking into old security networks, they slipped into the data center. Varnak's hands shook as they approached the storage vault where the memory frame was kept. When the door finally slid open, light spilled into the dark room. Inside, rows of data drives hummed quietly. There, on a pedestal, was the silver memory frame, exactly where Sierra had hidden it. Varnak picked it up carefully. The weight was both physical and symbolic, proof of the past and hope for the future. The group prepared to broadcast the contents to trusted contacts across the galaxy. The plan was simple but powerful. Once the truth was out, no one could silence it. As the signal began to send, Varnak looked around at the faces of those who had risked everything. They were ordinary beings like him, not heroes by birth but by choice. The first wave of messages went out, spreading slowly but steadily through old networks, personal devices, and secret satellites. Across distant systems, whispers began to turn into conversations. Questions grew louder. Doubts about the Council's stories started to surface. Varnak felt a quiet pride. The truth was breaking free, but the fight was far from over. He knew the Council would respond, trying to block the signal, to discredit the stories, to capture those who spread them. Still, Varnak smiled, because now the galaxy had seen a different side of humanity, a side built not on fear or anger, but on hope, courage, and an unbreakable will to help others. The real story was just beginning. The first rays of dawn slipped quietly through the narrow windows of the hidden room where Varnak and his allies gathered. The atmosphere was thick with tension and hope. The signal carrying the memory frame's contents was still streaming through the secret networks, reaching one system after another. Somewhere far across the stars, the message was stirring minds, changing hearts, breaking old fears. Varnak watched the flickering screens, each one showing pieces of the story, the courage of humans, the selfless acts, the truth that no one had dared to speak aloud before. Every new message sent sparked a small wave of replies, of questions, and most importantly, belief. But even as the truth spread, the Council's shadow crept closer. Alerts buzzed in the background. They had found the source of the broadcast. The hidden network was under attack. Firewalls were shutting down, communication lines cut. Varnak's group worked faster, moving from server to server, rerouting signals, rebuilding links that the Council tried to destroy. "Keep it going," the woman who first welcomed him urged, her fingers flying over the controls. "We can't let them silence this." Varnak nodded, heart pounding. He knew the Council had power and resources beyond what he could imagine. They controlled fleets, armies, and spies in every corner of the galaxy. But this was different. This was not just a fight of weapons or force. This was a battle of truth. Outside, the city seemed calm. But beneath the surface, the race was on. Suddenly, an alert flashed on the main screen. Security forces were approaching the tunnels. Their footsteps echoed faintly in the distance, growing louder. "Time's running out," the older man said quietly. "We need to move." Varnak's mind raced. The memory frame was safe, but if they were caught, all their work could be lost. He looked around at the faces of the group. Ordinary beings, each risking everything for a cause bigger than themselves. "We split up," Varnak said. "Some keep the signal alive. Others get the memory frame to a safer place." The group nodded, understanding the risks. They gathered their gear and prepared to vanish into the shadows. Varnak slipped through the tunnels, the sound of boots close behind. His breath was steady, but his heart thudded like a drum. Every step was a reminder of the stakes. The memory frame was not just data. It was proof that could change the galaxy's future. As he ran through the labyrinth, memories of the humans' actions came to his mind. No battles fought with guns or violence. Instead, strength shown in kindness, in courage to help when no one else would. That was the real power. Outside the tunnels, the night air was cool and silent. Varnak paused, looking up at the stars. Somewhere, out there, others were receiving the message, questioning old beliefs, opening their minds to new possibilities. He knew the Council would not give up. They would try harder, use more force. But the seed of truth was planted. Varnak moved quickly to a rendezvous point where allies waited with a small ship. They loaded the memory frame carefully. The ship's engines hummed softly as it lifted into the sky, disappearing among the stars. Back in the city, the others fought to keep the network alive, sending out waves of messages, stories of the humans, who had saved lives not with weapons but with courage and kindness. Days passed. The message spread farther, reaching diplomats, leaders, and everyday citizens. The Council's control began to weaken, their lies exposed by the simple truth that humans, despite their flaws, had shown a bravery and heart no one could deny. Varnak found himself not as a fugitive, but as a symbol. Not because he sought glory, but because he carried the real story, a story that would inspire others to see humanity in a new light. The galaxy was changing, and it all began with a memory frame, a quiet group of rebels, and a truth that refused to be hidden.